Hello, and thank you, Northern California HIMSS chapter, for inviting Veritas to talk to you today about Veritas' solution to support healthcare in a pandemic. I'm Rick Bryant. I'm the healthcare CTO for Veritas. Veritas has a very long history of being able to support mission critical applications. Specifically, I run the healthcare division for Veritas to make sure that we can meet the needs of the industry, not just for today, but also for tomorrow. As we all know, we've had a very massive and impactful change last year, with COVID causing many of our processes to change and a lot of focus on flexibility, agility, and surge capacity. For Veritas, we have built an enterprise data services platform that builds upon 30 years of trust for data protection, but also extends that to availability for all of your applications, whether it's on-prem, between premises, or to and from the cloud, and to give you critical information so that you can manage and protect the PHI and the critical clinical applications and information within your organization to make cost-effective decisions, to create new clinical protocols, and to make sure that we protect it according to HIPAA in this ever-changing environment. We have over 30 years of support in being able to protect and provide high availability across over 800 different data sources, 100 plus applications, over 1,400 storage targets, and any type of deployment or any type of cloud that you need. Being heterogeneous across the platforms mean that we put the customer first. We can support your legacy applications, but also support the new workloads as they develop. With Veritas, we have over a $2 billion company with 6,000 employees globally. We support over 87% of the Fortune 500. But the most important thing I want to draw to your attention in this slide is that we spend over $250 million in research and development every year. That's more than a lot of our competitors make. And what that means is that we're able to continuously invest and survey the needs of the industry and create solutions within our products for that. I wanted to put a couple of names across the different pillars of the platforms. We allow customers to have the option to be able to select from our portfolio for what best suits their business needs. But all the portfolio integrates into a comprehensive data services platform to help position your organizations for the future. For data protection, we have award-winning Net Backup and Net Backup appliances, which were the first ones to develop to protect against ransomware and zero-day vulnerabilities. We have long-term retention and flexible scale up and scale out options. We even have data protection for the cloud and high availability for the cloud. So as you migrate your applications to become more flexible, in fact, most healthcare organizations I'm talking with today, they're starting to develop a third tier of data, and the cloud plays a very critical role in it. But you have to be smart about how you leverage that cloud, or it can end up costing you more or not performing as well. We also have a long history of providing high availability for applications. But most importantly to this industry, we have the ability to orchestrate your disaster recovery and to be able to provide you with fire drill tests so that you can prove that you're recoverable before the time of the event. And we've gotten so sophisticated with this where we've even developed solutions such as DR on demand, to where you only pay for the disaster recovery infrastructure at the time of the event. But let's talk a little bit about the insights, being able to gather the information within our organization to best be able to protect it. Now, our discussion today is focused specifically on ransomware. And unfortunately, I have become an expert in ransomware because I've been warning our industry for over 8 years now. I saw a correlation between low budgets for information security and a highly regulated organization, and then a threat portfolio that really made ransomware and hackers target healthcare. The value of the healthcare information is so much broader than even financial services or credit card information. And so as ransomware has developed, and with what happened with COVID last year, healthcare is specifically being targeted by, I know, at least 4 nation state actors. They're trying to cause disruption, they're trying to steal our formularies and our treatment protocols, and they're trying to attack an industry that is more willing to pay because they're under duress. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how to protect yourself and protect your organizations in partnership with Veritas. Now, most of you guys know how ransomware has developed. It first appeared in 1991, which to old guys like me seems like just yesterday, but that's been over 30 years ago, right? And it has developed in sophistication over the time to where it starts using cryptocurrencies for payment. And then it started growing astronomically, about 350% in 2019, and fourth quarter of 2019. And that's where we saw these nation state actors specifically targeting ransomware. So what does ransomware look like? How does it affect everyone? 32% of organizations lose data for more than 5 days. And some of that's critical data, like not being able to schedule necessary surgeries or interventions, having disruption to your clinical processes. A ransomware attack happens about every 11 seconds nowadays. And it's projected to be around $11.5 billion industry in 2020. I haven't seen those numbers finalized yet, but it's going to be a big revenue generator. And personally, it dawned on me when the FBI reached out to me that they were specifically tracking ransomware in healthcare, that North Korea's sanctions were being bypassed. They were able to generate over $1 billion in revenue just from ransomware attacks alone, which means that it not only caused disruption into our organizations and our country, but it also it fought against our national security practice. And 20% of the victims who pay still don't get their data back. In fact, more often we see that they become a target for other ransomware attackers. Once you're known to pay, you're going to be targeted by other hackers. So, here are some of the biggest ones that we've seen in 2020. Municipal governments spent over $144 million trying to resolve and rebuild networks and restoring data. There was a lot of operations like Baltimore where they couldn't even process a water bill for over a couple of months. And then the most interesting one that I saw that uses the new form of ransomware that we're going to talk about was Grummanshire, Masalas, and Sachs. And this is a big law firm that represented a lot of actors, actresses, celebrities, and they were able to use the new form of ransomware to exfiltrate that data and then use that data as sort of an extortion scheme. So if you don't pay me, not only am I not going to unlock your data, but I'm going to post this publicly and embarrass you and possibly cause you to have to report some breaches. In another case study that we talked about, and this one hit really close to home, they're one of my very close customers, was hackers paid, University of California paid $1.4 million to hackers to get their data back. And they were working on critical COVID treatments and formularies. There's a direct correlation to why they were attacked and how much money that cost. So why are they targeting public sector, right? Why are we the apple of their eye? Well, we have patient data, and that patient data can be used for so much stuff, everything from identity theft to medical theft to pharmaceutical theft. We also have a real lack of perimeter security technology, right? 86% of the hospitals that I talked to as of 2020, didn't have sandboxing and perimeter filters. And a lot of this stuff comes in via email as you will. We have very high value data that can literally save lives, and it could be worth a ton of money. Also, when we started reimbursing for telehealth, we immediately gave thousands of caregivers remote access, which was fantastic to treat the perimeter or the pandemic, but it also created thousands of new entry points into our organization. And RDP, using remote RDP protocol, improves ransomware success by over 37%. So with the emerging threats that we see, we know that hospitals are 6 times more likely to host their own services, and hackers wait dormant. I see on average between 8 and 18 months before they activate an attack. And I'll go through a little bit of that for your information on how these attacks go through. So ransomware's been out there for a while. What's the big change? Why are we so worried? Well, previously to the newest versions of ransomware, there was good belief that the data was never exfiltrated in our environment. So we know that the data had been encrypted. We know that our access to that data had been stopped. And we don't know if that data was ever changed, but we had a very good level of confidence that wasn't exfiltrated and it wasn't viewed by unauthorized reviewers. The new versions, the Radiki and the Sodaniki and the Rebel and the Zeppelin ransomware, they actually exfiltrate a copy of the data. So it is a breach, which means that there's more than 50 records that have been captured by ransomware and exfiltrated using the new forms. It has to be reported to OCR. And I want to kind of go through just a few seconds of how this works. So they typically use a spear phishing type of technique. They have enough information about you and your organization to get you to accidentally click on a link thinking that you're doing something appropriate. Then they quietly download a package that begins scanning and searching your entire environment. They first find the backup workloads and they encrypt those first. Then they find the high value data and exfiltrate that off-site so that they can use it for extortion or sell that data. They then execute a command that encrypts all of that production data and drops a ransomware note on there. They tell you to pay this Bitcoin wallet and they will give you the keys. And that whole back and forth can go quite difficult. But I want you to know, guys, that this has become so prevalent that there are ransomware as a service platforms out there where all I have to do is put in my target's IP, put in my Bitcoin wallet, and tell them how much I want. And then it just goes out after you. So I always recommend organizations set up a Bitcoin wallet as right now, because that takes some time in case you do have to pay. Not that anybody recommends that you do, but make sure that that's set up in advance. And then follow this approach to layered levels of security or defense in depth that we're about to go into. This is an example of how it looks. There was a lot of activity around fake COVID alerts that people were clicking on. They're also using DocuSign and different embedded information, which is very sophisticated. For the first time ever, I'm seeing SMS messages, instant messages, or text that actually have malware in them as well. That's brand new to me. But then the social media and phishing landing page, where a lot of us spend too much time online nowadays, I'm sure. And looking for information about what's going on with COVID, what's going on with the spread. But they're able to actually embed the malware into Excel spreadsheets now. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. So obviously having good accountability in your organization and good training is a key focus, along with with good technology and accountable security practices. So as a review, as part of the HIPAA omnibus rule, breach notification for unsecured PHI is required after you have done a risk assessment factor, looking at the nature and extent of the PHI involved, the unauthorized person to whom the PHI was disclosed, whether or not the PHI was actually acquired or viewed. So for example, if it's exfiltrated and it's encrypted and you have a high level of confidence that no one could review that, then that would not be as big a concern. It would lower risk factor. And then the extent to which the risk has been mitigated. With the HIPAA enforcement rule, again, part of the omnibus, we have tiered levels of responsibility, meaning if you're doing everything reasonable within your power, bad things happen to good people, and you're not going to get as big a fine or penalties associated. If you had reasonable cause, a lower level of tier, and you didn't resolve that, then that could put you at a higher level of risk and higher level of fines. And then the worst is if you have a vulnerability and you willfully choose not to resolve it. So we all know that ransomware is here. We all know that ransomware is exfiltrating data. We need to take the necessary steps to be able to protect our organization. And on willful neglect, OCR investigates all possible causes of willful neglect. But just this past year, just recently, they finalized an anti-kickback and change to the Stark rules, which basically means if healthcares and hospitals are following best cybersecurity practices, they're going to have a bit of a safe harbor, because that's how bad the problem has been. So it's very important for you guys to know what the best security and best practice is, and show within your organization that you are applying those type of techniques. If you have to notify because of a breach, there's a presumption of a reportable breach unless there is a low probability that the PHI has been compromised. And that requires notification to the media, to the secretary, and to the business associates, and notification by the business associates. Now, a lot of us have heavy research arms as part of our organization, and the researchers are telling us that, in this case, Proofpoint, that because of COVID pandemic, ransomware-based attacks are on the rise, and they were already at phenomenal levels even in 2019. And one of the things that I talk a lot, and this is ironically with the government and with the military and army, SPA wars, all that, is the forms. You guys remember when the NSA and the CIA digital tool bag was stolen? It was compromised. Well, the ransomware and the hackers are starting to incorporate those tricks into their approach. A good example of that is being able to embed malware into Microsoft Office or Microsoft Word or Excel. I find it extremely concerning because of all the smart devices, and part of that toolkit allows you to be able to remotely hack cameras, remotely listen to smart devices. I'm really worried about how this is going to play out in the next bag of tricks. So the only things for certain is that they're going to get smarter and they're going to keep trying harder as long as we are vulnerable and as long as we are willing to pay. So I want to pivot a little bit about what you can do to protect your organization. And Veritas by no means is the comprehensive solution, but we play a very strong role in being able to rapidly recover, be able to protect your assets and protect your backups from being encrypted so that the bad guys own you, and also being able to detect where the malware is. And this goes into our overall discussion around information governance. There's a lot of reasons where you need to know where your PHI is to protect it. On my information, it costs around $8 per record to properly protect per HIPAA. And you don't want to spend $8 to protect cat photos or unnecessary records. You just want to protect the PHI and save a lot of money there. But to that same point, you want to know where that important PHI is so that you can leverage it for your clinical protocols and create the next generation of cost-effective medicine. But when you look at ransomware protection, you have to have it all without compromise. You have to have resiliency against ransomware so you keep your mission critical systems up. You have to know that your data is recoverable no matter where it lives, on-prem, between-prem, or in the cloud. It helps to have a singular pane of glass because we've created so much complexity in this industry where we've got so many silos and I have to look at this screen for this tool, this screen for this department, this screen for that department. Having it all within one pane of glass really helps minimize the risk and the gaps. And then visibility into your optimized infrastructure will help you lower costs at the same time you are better protecting your organization. We do offer a ransomware data protection assessment, and it's a holistic approach. Please reach out to us if you're interested in this. It's always good to understand where the drivers are of the organization. It is completely secure and confidential. We help customers all the time, some of which have gotten so sophisticated at recovering that they're not even that concerned about it. Others where they're really working to build that governance to where they can prevent it. And others that are trying to protect their crown jewels, their formularies, and their medical processes. So with presenting ransomware, we built one of the first, if not the first, hardened appliance, meaning that if you use accountable security processes and protect your key codes, they cannot get in there and delete and encrypt your backup workloads. And that not only affects and works for ransomware, that works for any other zero-day vulnerability. We built this device so that it only does approved activities and no one can change that. We have the ability to have offsite copies. We always recommend 3-2-1, 3 copies, 2 different locations, one of them offsite. We can air gap and we have immutable copies too, to where they only can be deleted or changed when they expire. And then of course, being able to protect across your entire endpoint, we have the desktop laptop option and mobile device protection as well. So that you don't only protect devices and technology within your organization, you protect all those remote workers as well. With detecting ransomware, we have a very sophisticated tool called Data Insight that can scan not only all the different file types and help you identify known malware extension, but also search within documents to find out if there is a PHI or a medical record number, or being able to look within the content to see if it's medically relevant and maybe we could use it for other purposes. We again are not part of, we are part of the overall solution. So we recommend other technologies like endpoint security, Tripwire for monitoring, FireEye, partnering with a lot of that perimeter defense. If you can keep them in at the outside layer, you can save a lot of grief with us as your last defense in terms of being able to restore those applications. And when it comes to restoring those applications, we have very rapid recovery. I talk to a lot of customers about the instant access. We can spin up virtual machines on the actual appliance and put them into production while they're being recovered to bare metal. I was talking with one customer the other day, and we've have benchmarks of being able to spin up over 300 VMs at a time. But we state for performance purposes, we can spin up at least 50, guarantee at least 50 at a time. So you can put entire service lines back up into production while you're recovering, which has a huge return on investment. We also can help you rapidly recover your databases and your cloud uses with CloudPoint. And then I talked just a bit about orchestrated recovery. If you're interested in this, we have abilities to be able to take very complex, multi-tiered and legacy environments and be able to recover those with the push of a button. And whether you want it to be always on or whether you want to orchestrate it at the time of the disaster, we can make that, we can give you an easy button for that. So guys, I apologize. I talked about a whole lot of stuff. I can't wait to get face-to-face with the team. We love our HIMSS chapters, especially NorCal. And we have some resources here for you. Please take a look at them. And if there's anything else that we can do, any other questions we can answer, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you very much for your time today, and we appreciate the ongoing partnership with healthcare.